This season on Navigating Abroad, we're back at the World AI Festival in Cannes, talking to some of the brightest leaders in artificial intelligence. We'll be delving into the important questions around the impact of AI on our world, what the ethical implications are, and how we can ensure these technologies are used for good. On this episode, I sit down with Fred Werner, the head of strategic engagement at the United Nations. Fred is an accomplished association management professional with particular expertise in telecommunications. He specializes in strategic communications, community building, and international relations, and has a strong passion for his work. He also played a pivotal role in the creation of the groundbreaking AI for Good Global Summit, demonstrating his commitment to driving positive change in the industry. Hi Fred, it's wonderful to see you here at day 2 of the World AI Cannes Festival. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy agenda here on day 2 to join us. How was your first day of the event?
It was great, and yeah, first of all, thank you for having me, and what a great location. It's great to be here. Yeah, first day I thought was really good. We kicked off with an AI for Good panel, where we basically shared the good word of AI for Good with the AI community here, and we were lucky to have with us I think a unique mix of profiles, which is very symbolic of AI for Good. So we had an inventor, an artist, a musician, LJ Rich. We had a pioneer in autonomous driving, Bryn Balcom. And then we had the first female PhD in AI and machine learning from the UAE, from TII. So I think it was a really good mix of profiles that really portrays what AI for Good is all about. And of course, you were moderating and did a great job. So all in all, a good start.
Absolutely. And it was so impressive to see all the different ways you guys are touching the AI for Good community, from different technology innovations to different regions and the impacts that you're having. Can you tell us a little bit more about the UN's AI for Good initiative?
Yeah, so AI for Good was built on the premise that we have about 10 years to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, but time is running out quick. And AI holds great promise to achieve many of the goals and targets. So anything from climate change to affordable healthcare, to education, to gender equity, or more high-tech solutions like autonomous driving and smart cities, the potential is definitely there. And in fact, they did a recent mapping in the scientific journal Nature Communications, where they mapped what SDGs can positively impact, or how AI can positively impact the SDGs and how they can negatively impact the SDGs. And through that mapping, they saw that 154 of the targets could be positively impacted, and about 59 could be negatively impacted. So on the positive side, you have things like mapping poverty from space, or increasing agricultural yields, reducing road fatalities by assistive technologies in cars, increasing education, huge amount of use cases for healthcare, mobility, accessibility. So the use cases are definitely there. On the flip side, of course, there's the fear of job loss through automation, but also other things like ethics, bias issues with data sets that are not inclusive, privacy, surveillance, and basically the risk of further deepening the digital divide. But the good news is that there's more positive use cases than negative use cases, so it's all about how you use the technology. And simply put, the goal of AI for Good is to identify practical applications of AI that exist today to advance the Sustainable Development Goals and help scale the solutions for global impact.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys have seen some of the best innovation. You want to make sure it gets the furthest reach out to the people in the most need for it. And it seems like you're making wonderful progress. This will be your 5th annual event this year in Geneva. Do you mind telling us a little bit about the AI for Good conference that's upcoming?
Yeah, so the first summit kicked off in 2017, and it was more of an experiment, but we were amazed at the level of interest in AI for Good at that time. And as the community grew, the event doubled in size, then it doubled in size again, and it was going to double in size again, but then COVID hit, and then we basically had to rethink our whole model. But instead of waiting for blue skies, and no one really knew how long the pandemic would last, we said, well, let's just put all our content online and see what happens. So now we're doing in the order of 150 events online every year.
Wow.
And that really, if you look at all the touch points on what we're trying to do in terms of being the most inclusive, neutral, global, and diverse AI for Good community in the world, going virtual really increased the number of participants from about 2,000 people in the physical event to reaching about 300,000 people online. The number of countries participating went from about 100 to 183, so that's almost all the countries in the world. Very importantly, the gender balance increased a lot because all of the bottlenecks that prevent women from participating in events, whether it's home life, family, there's a whole number of issues.
All the invisible labor.
The invisible barriers. Not all of them, but a lot of that friction got reduced because online you just connect to a Zoom call and there you are. So our gender balance increased to almost 50-50, which was great. And developing countries, they have their own challenges, right? They can't just fly to Geneva, so they could also participate virtually much more easily. So almost all the touch points were good for AI for Good. Having said that, there is a need to reconnect in person, like we've done, these past few days.
Yes.
So we're going to keep the online layer going. So still doing 150 events a year online, but doing basically a landmark summit in Geneva. That's going to be the 6th, 7th of July, and getting people to really reconnect and really focus on that reconnection, the networking, solutions, matchmaking, and that's what the summit's going to be all about.
Yeah, and this is a partnership between governments and the private sector and the NGO spaces all coming together to convene to find global solutions to challenges. So for our listeners that tend to be in the private sector and more executive leadership roles, what are ways they can contribute to this overall benefit that the organization brings?
Yeah, so I think the AI experts in our community, they would be the first ones to say you can't leave AI to the AI experts, and you have to bring as many people to the table as possible. So a lot of efforts have been made to definitely bring industry, because they're the innovators, they have the tech, they have the money, they're moving the fastest, but also bringing industry combined with academia, with civil society, with NGOs, with our member states, with our 40 UN partners, but also bringing in the creatives, so the artists, the athletes, the performers, the creative thinkers, and all these people come to AI for Good because everyone should have a voice in how AI is going to shape our future if we want a chance of moving it in the right direction. But we definitely rely a lot on industry for expertise and also for funding. Yeah.
And so for folks that are interested about learning more, if they wanted to participate in a virtual event, what would be the best way for them to connect?
Well, I would go to aiforgood.itu.int. That's the starting point, and there's an engage page. That's where we receive all our proposals for sessions, and it used to be we'd get one proposal a month, and then it became once a week, and then it's once a day, and I think we probably get 5 proposals a day now, so which is a good thing.
Wonderful.
But we also have to sift through all of that and start to. The good thing is by going online, we're able to cover much wider range of topics because we have basically almost every working day we have a chance to do something, and it's a very sort of community-driven process where we have the 40 UN partners who are all partners, and they're contributing in terms of speakers, knowledge, data, expertise, but they're also there to learn. They don't have all the answers either. And all I would say is get in touch, have a good proposal, and help to bring the people together needed to make that happen. And it's as easy as that. It's not a pay-for-play event. It's free for all to use, and so all we need is people and ideas.
Sounds amazing. Can you share some of the success stories that you've had by bringing this diverse group together to look at global challenges?
Yeah, certainly. So one of our catchphrases is, we're not a talk shop, and we're action-oriented. So we're not just an event for the sake of being an event. And over the years, we've generated a number of AI for Good pre-standardization efforts. So the first one being AI for Health with the World Health Organization. And basically, they're working on, maybe to backtrack a bit, if you're looking at drug development, it takes years and years and millions, if not billions of dollars to get a drug approved. At the same time, you have all these high potential AI health applications, algorithms, things you can actually do with your mobile phone going up on the iStore every day without any kind of oversight. And it's not to say they're good or bad, there's just no means for evaluating if they're good or bad. So they're basically working on a benchmarking framework for the testing and evaluation and for the efficacy of AI for Health algorithms, so that if you are a government or a city or a hospital or someone who needs to know, what is this use case? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it going to work for me? Or does it work on men and women? Does it work on people of different skin colors? Does it work on children and adults and the elderly? Does it work in developing countries? These are things that are being thought about at AI for Good, and that's important work that's taking place there. And since we created that focus group, we've done a number of focus groups. So for example, AI and natural disaster management with WMO and UNEP, and basically looking at how all the use cases in which AI can help to predict, manage, and mitigate natural disasters. And there's so many. So this is really important work. Likewise, we have another one on AI in agriculture, working with FAO, and you have all these use cases where if you combine satellite imagery with IoT, with big data, with robotics and AI, to basically do more effective farming, right? And so that's happening. We have one on AI and autonomous driving as well. So they're basically working on the equivalent of a driving license for autonomous cars, and not that the car would have an actual license, but the idea is that at a minimum, any kind of autonomous system that's deployed in a car should behave and perform equal or better to a human driver. So that's sort of the philosophy behind that group. And on top of that, we have challenges. So we have machine learning and 5G challenge. We have a geo satellite imagery challenge. We have a number of tiny ML. So for example, we heard a lot about edge computing and federated learning and basically AI happening on the edge. And so that they launch challenges. So for example, how can you use tiny sensors with microphones to detect the level of rainfall just from the sound, or the number of mosquitoes, for example. So all these are like really niche projects that are happening there, but great solutions coming out of that. And last but not least, we have the Innovation Factory, which is a year-long startup pitching competition. So any startup that's using AI in a positive way to advance the SDGs can basically apply. They can compete. They do their pitches to mentors and judges, and this is happening all year long. And that's actually yielding really practical solutions that need the visibility that could be deployed today.
So it sounds like you're convening together all the stakeholders that are looking for how do we look for multinational solutions that actually impact the benefit of humanity in as frictionless of a way as possible. And so for people that are interested in learning more about the challenges in other places, trying to solve similar problems, it's probably a place to learn. For people that are interested in investing in innovation and seeing what the latest and greatest is on the startup front is, have a place. And then also for folks that want to take some of their skill sets and apply it to something that they're personally passionate about in terms of the environment or improving outcomes for women and children or healthcare outcomes. This is a place you can come to lend your talent.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of there's a sense of urgency with the community where, we're already 2023, so it's 7 years till the SDGs. So any idea or solution that you bring to the table might need a couple years to get off the ground, a few more years to deploy, and then you only have a couple of years left to see if it has any kind of measurable impact on the SDGs. So there's a sort of laser focus on practical solutions or ideas or collaboration efforts, projects that can be done now, between now and 2030.
So what have you guys learned in the last 5 years? What was it like doing a project 5 years ago versus today? What are some of your key experiences here?
I think the main difference is going from idea to implementation. So I think we've entered the decade of implementation, or we could even say the year of implementation. We saw with the audience today, what used to be just an idea, everyone's talking about ChatGPT and DALL-E and Midjourney, and actually they're starting to use their tools in their daily work, and it's shaping how they work, how they create, how they collaborate, which raises other questions. But I think it's fair to say that AI has kind of hit the mainstream, and I would even say in the last 3 weeks. So we've really seen a shift. When the summit was created, it was more about the fear and the promise of AI. Is it going to create this utopian society where we don't need to work and we can just, paint watercolors? A bit of a joke, but that was one extreme. Or are we basically going to become irrelevant and where the machines take over and, and everything in between? So it was really about trying to find the signal through the noise and sort things out. And we saw the narrative change from the hype, and then it was maybe a bit more fear-based, like, oh, we have to be really careful, we need guardrails. And then it was more about, okay, what is it really good for, what is it not good for? And now we're really more, okay, it's implementation time. But I think if we didn't have those earlier conversations, we might be in worse shape now. And I used the analogy yesterday where if we could have gone back to the late 90s and when the dot-com boom and thought about okay, what does this mean for humanity? We would have been having discussions about privacy, about cybersecurity, about online bullying and cyber threats, and those conversations weren't taking place back then. It was, let's sell pets.com for $10 million. That was a conversation that was happening. So I think to avoid the mistakes of the past, the conversations we're having now might have a chance to steer AI in a better direction than would have been if there were not these kind of guardrails or discussions.
Yeah, designing with an end-to-end solution mindset versus a point technology application. So with that, Fred, how do you use data to inform where you spend your limited resources of time and focus? How does the organization prioritize and decide what to go after?
That's a good question. In the business world, you have profit loss, red, black, and you have a very clear signal of if you're doing okay or not and how to prioritize. I think the challenge with the nonprofit sector is it's not so clear, so you're more relying on inputs from the community to guide you. And I think probably the best framework for guidance would be the Sustainable Development Goals, because let's say if you and I or the people in the venue today sat down in a room and had to decide what is good and how do we decide which way to go, we could spend all week and probably come up with 30 different answers. But the SDGs, having been agreed upon by 193 countries, 17 goals, 169 targets, that does provide a framework for focusing efforts and decision making, and so you don't stray too far, and at least you're not starting from scratch every time. So I think the SDGs as a kind of lighthouse has been a really important framework for us as an organization, but also for the community that come to us for some kind of guidance as well.
So in my experience working in the AI for good space, there's a lot easier ways to earn a paycheck. What is your why for wanting to come in and tackle some of the biggest challenges of our time?
I mean, for me, it's easy. I think AI is probably going to be the most transformational event in our history, really. I mean, if you look at, and it's only starting now, but I do believe it's going to change everything from the way we work, the way we collaborate, maybe future economic models, what we value, how we interact with each other, and it's only the beginning now, but I think it will transform humankind in a way that we haven't seen before. I think before it was more forces acting on us, whether it was like wars or natural disasters or things, and but I think, that kind of gets me out of bed, or keeps me up at night rather.
Keeps you from going to bed, yes,
exactly.
yes.
Yeah.
So for people that are interested in your work and want to follow along and contribute, where are the best ways to connect?
Yeah, so like I said before, go to aiforgood.itu.int, or just Google AI for Good, it'll go to the top, and just get in touch. I mean, we're looking for, expertise, funding, volunteers, resources, people who want to spread the good word, and there's 100 ways of getting involved. If you, for example, our pre-standardization efforts, they're very much contribution driven, and they're open, no membership fee required, anyone can participate. So if you have use cases, if you have research, if you have knowledge that you think could advance that area, just sign up and join. It's as easy as that. If you're a startup, go to the page and sign up so you can do some pitching and maybe you have a chance to win. If you enjoy challenges, we have a large number of machine learning challenges on many different topics, and actually more than participating in the challenges, we need problem statements as well. So the hard part is coming up with a really well formulated problem statement that people can actually solve for. So we need problem statements, and we need people to compete and try to find the solutions to those problem statements. And I think just get in touch and see how we can. I mean, we have events online almost every day now. Last but not least, if you can, come to Geneva. If you can't, you can follow online as well, and you get the best of both worlds there.
Thank you so much for your time today, Fred. Really inspiring work you're doing.
Well, thank you, Lisa, and great job, steering the ship for these past 2 days. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.